This approved opportunity to dwell with the participants of this webinar into this very happy September morning. Good weather outside, and I hope the overall discussion today, as mentioned by in your key takeaways, is able to highlight and bring to limelight certain aspects of how social enterprise development and affirmative action is definitely correlated, but prospectively, how can the road be more prosperous for this alignment? So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me this morning in the deliberations of social enterprise through affirmative action. I would not take my name again and again. I'm in capacity in partnership with Fiinovation and CII to bring this webinar to you. We'll be specifically speaking about the aspects on affirmative action and social enterprise development. Just to give a brief of what exactly, what is the background that Fiinovation has. I'll run through it because it's not the very most important part of the presentation. We are a corporate social responsibility based initiative. We basically assist businesses to develop sustainability and social responsible strategies, and we work with on-ground agencies as well, where we design initiatives, complete the monitoring and evaluation for businesses, strategize, evaluate, and complete the whole initiative at large. The agenda of the webinar today is based on the following understanding. So we'll start with a better understanding of social enterprise models. One of the basic things that we need to do is develop a raw understanding, the ground understanding of social enterprise development in India. What are the social enterprise laws in India that we have? Understanding of affirmative action in India, which will be followed by the promotion of social enterprise models and marginalized communities. So some of the examples also that we'll be taking along with us. How is the India Inc. and the social enterprise movement reacting to each other's presence? We'll be concluding with not a challenge, not question, but few answers and suggestions from our end as to what are the ways forward. Let's start with the bottom line understanding of what is actually a social enterprise. You can see the definition, and if you want, I can read it out to you. A social enterprise is an organization that applies commercial strategies to maximize improvements in human and environmental well-being. This may include maximizing social impact rather than profits for external shareholders. Now, what you got to understand is, it's a profit-oriented enterprise, but the deliveries are not converted directly into dividends for the shareholders, but it is in fact has got a far-reaching social impact through its model of delivery, whether it's a service model or it's a product model. Social enterprises have a mixed and a contested heritage due to philanthropic roots, which obviously started in the United States, followed by the United Kingdom and rest of the European Union, and now the Asian countries have started moving far ahead of the other counterparts as far as social enterprises are concerned. One of the major reasons of that is because the need has suddenly seen an urge in these growing economies of the world. Now, how does the concept actually work? So we have a reference here from Maslow's need hierarchy, which says a social enterprise can be engaged in any business activity fulfilling any need. That's the hierarchy. Now, we have given you a small example which simplifies the understanding. So, entertainment, nutrition, sanitation, communication, livelihoods, transportation, education, training, and financial inclusion are some of the sectors, some of the objectives with which, if your business is running, we would tend to react to them as social enterprises. What is the ADB basically? To give you a global perspective of what social enterprise is defined as, we've given you, just to keep it short, the ADB definition. It basically tells you that organizations that have triple bottom line returns actually are addressing the social enterprise model. You can read through the definition. So let's see a bar mechanism of how it works. So the social needs are categorized as personal fulfillments, self-esteem, status, reputation, love, affection, family, culture, and relationships. The basic needs are shelter, protection, safety, and stability, air, sleep, food, hunger, thirst, and warmth. So this is the hierarchy on which the need hierarchy works. Now, what is the global context? We started with the definition of ADB. Now we'll be looking at some of the other global contexts that it started. So the social entrepreneurship can be traced to Beechwood College near Leeds, England, as far as 1978 when it started. When they use the term social enterprise to describe worker and community cooperatives that use the social accounting and audit system developed by Beechwood. So this was one of the early stages of social enterprise development in Europe. Most of us who are active in the social sector would actually know that Ashoka, the Innovators for the Public, a US foundation established by Bill Drayton, was a program to support the development of social entrepreneurship. So some of the mechanism that started long back in the US and the UK to develop the social enterprises. In the US, the term is associated with doing charity by doing trade rather than doing charity while doing trade. So this is a dichotomous kind of a situation where corporate social responsibility aligns with social enterprise development, where you actually have to define where your trade actually is garnered through the process of management of charity, and it's not just doing charity while you are doing in the trade. There is a much stronger emphasis on community organizing and democratic control of capital and mutual principles rather than philanthropy. So it is more organized, it is more stringent, it is more systematic, process oriented rather than social responsibility objectives. We will also come at the end of this presentation as to an alignment where, as to a convergence where social responsibility meets with social enterprise development and affirmative action. So what are some social entrepreneurship development initiatives across the world? So Public Services Act 2012, United Kingdom, NYU Fellowships in Entrepreneurship, Social Entrepreneurship and Innovation, Social Enterprise Summer Fellowships by Harvard Business School, Amazing Grace Rangoon, Myanmar, Global Social Entrepreneurship Network, UK, Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, Unis Social Business, run by Mohammed Yunus's Foundation, Rubicon Programs, California, USA. So some of the examples of schemes, institutions, mechanisms which are actually put into practice to develop, incubate social enterprises across the world. Now, let's come to our more local context, that is the India context of social enterprise. While we study the Indian context, we have to keep in mind the global context, because some of these derivatives have been narrowed down from the global context since the initiation of such initiatives actually took a global form first and then it came into India. So in India, the definition is not limited by any legal structure. Social enterprises can be registered as private limited companies, cooperatives, not-for-profit, trust or any other legal entities. Now, to narrow it down further, in India, a non-profit can be registered as a society or a trust or a Section 8 company under the Companies Act 2013. Now, specifically because earlier it was known as Section 25 company, and after the Companies Act 2013, it has been renamed as Section 8 company. I would just like to highlight a few things about what makes Section 8 companies more interesting. It has in its objectives the promotion of commerce, arts, science, sports, education, research, social welfare, religion, charity, protection of environment, and such subjects, which intends to apply its profits, if any, or other income in promoting its objects, and intends to prohibit the payment of any dividend. Please mind it, it intends to prohibit the payment of any dividend to its members. Now, one of the new things that have actually started gaining momentum and is more publicly accepted now is impact investments. Impact investments in India has its roots back in 1982 when the Ashoka Foundation provided grants to social entrepreneurs. But now it has now taken a very, very front seat where people have actually started discussing about impact investment at large. Now we have spoken about what is the idea behind social enterprise, what is basically the culture of social enterprise, what is the global scenario, what is the local scenario. Let's see about some of the challenges that the development of social enterprises actually faces in India. So social enterprises are not just scaling up, they're scaling out. Most of these social enterprises, they go up to a level and then they phase out. There is a serious problem of scalability with these social enterprises. I think we need to look at it very, very seriously. Governments and international institutions have a huge role to play in this sector. The bigger the enterprise, the greater the need for democratic accountability. We tend to believe that the more bigger the social enterprise becomes, we tend to forget our basic accountability towards the entrepreneurial sector. We got to remember that the bigger the enterprise becomes, the greater is the accountability that we need to follow. Both financial management systems, operational management system needs to be fully accountable at any point of the day. Potential to transform the socioeconomics of poorer nations, but individuals require support such as capital, infrastructure, market access. You need to develop a conducive environment for the growth of social enterprise. You cannot expect a social enterprise to face all such challenges and to grow up at a scale where a private sector enterprise develops. If you are providing incentives, jobs, a conducive environment for the private sector to grow and breed, it is an impediment that you should actually look after the social enterprises with the same intensity, with the same vision and foresight. Now, entry of big businesses in the market. Naturally, the social enterprises start at a very small scale and then they tend to grow over a period of time, crossing through the challenges. We also should not forget that social enterprises require some extra incentives in order to grow simply because they have a social objective in mind, which the bigger businesses actually tend to gulp up by the volume of their capacity to manage the business market. Social enterprise leaders do not often come from traditional business background, hence they lack expertise. But I would not blame it on an institution or an individual. I think it is for the individual who looks after the social enterprise, has to be sufficiently trained and has to be knowledgeable himself or herself to carry on with the business forward, and should have ideally a roadmap for the next 15 to 20 years. A genuine need and desire for collaboration across sectors and geographies, which is self-explanatory. We need a lot of donor support. The initial days, India is the Prime Minister's focus is on a stand-up India, startup India. We are seeing what he's basically, campaigning in the United States currently that he's present in. He's focusing more on the startup mechanisms. I was listening to him yesterday at the Facebook headquarters, and I got to understand that he's completely focused on making India the next startup hub of this millennium. What we have to focus is in this startup mechanism, we do not only concentrate on private sector development, because as the growth of economy takes place in a country like India, the disparity between the social and the financial sectors keeps growing. To narrow that gap, we need the development of social enterprises and alignment with affirmative action as soon as possible, as much as possible. So we need a lot of support in this sector as far as the grantors, as far as the grantees are concerned. Process on large social impact investments had been slow due to multiple hurdles, which we have already discussed. Need for better infrastructure to support. Now, every sector is complaining these days about requirement of a better sector, whether it's railways, whether it's telecom, whether it's the IT sector. We have to realize that as infrastructure comes into force, and I'm sure that with the focus and vision that we all have, the infrastructure is going to develop in this country at a far larger, faster pace. The area and the environment for social enterprises to develop will also gather momentum. Now, a few examples of social enterprises. In the global, you can see Soma Source, Community Shop, Textbooks for Change, Art Zoo, Ibatuta, Water Health International, Kiva, BioLite, and some of the examples. In India also, we have some very, very successful examples. Amul, the Anand Milk Federation Union Limited, Godavari Women Weavers Producer Company, Nayanika Leaps and Bounds, Frontier Markets, M. Pani, Make a Difference, Samhita Social Ventures. I would not take the name of our own company, which is self-established, innovative financial advisors. These are some of the examples. And I would put a comma to my explanation to social enterprises now, because one of the major impetus of this webinar is to fix up an alignment between social enterprises and affirmative action. Now that we are done with the understanding of social enterprises, of whatever limited capacity we could, our next impetus of understanding is on understanding affirmative action. Because if you do not know the definition, if you don't broaden it out and simplify it, it's very difficult for us to align it with the social enterprise development and followed by social responsibility mechanism. So what is it known as? Again, we'll start looking at affirmative action from scratch. It is called employment equity in Canada, requires employers to engage in proactive employment practice to increase the representation of 4 designated groups: women, people with disabilities, aboriginal people, and visible minorities. Now, affirmative action in USA is commonly known as focus on issues as education, employment, specifically granting special consideration to racial minorities and women who have been historically excluded groups. It is also known as positive action in UK, promotion of people based on belonging to non-majority identity groups in workplace, educational institutions, and positions in society. Now, what you got to understand is, every country, if you look at it, if you look at Canada, if you look at USA, if you look at the Europe represented by the UK, they have affirmative action already in practice. In India as well, we have actually long discussed about it. Some of the institutions like CII has gone ahead and established mechanisms to promote affirmative action, but because of the large community outside these institutions are not very open or not very accountable to be audited on the lines of affirmative action, has caused a lot of resistance in India for the growth of this sector. In India, we call it the reservation policy. It is an elaborate quota system for public jobs, places in publicly funded colleges, in most elected assemblies. Financial institutions have also started now going towards affirmative action by blocking or by ensuring that vendors from a certain community should be brought ahead. The limitation on the vendors and 40 procurement mechanisms have been set with percentile matters of how much has to be procured from the backward community entrepreneurs, which has given rise to establishment of the DICI, which is the Chamber of Commerce, Dalit Chamber of Commerce, which we'll be discussing in the later slides about what are the steps that CII is also taken in that direction. So any action, those who tend to suffer from favoring those who tend to suffer from discrimination, positive discrimination, is basically called and known as affirmative action. Affirmative action reserves long-standing discriminatory tendencies in a society for a people of a certain caste, gender, sexual orientation, race, or ethnic background. Affirmative action provides supposedly fairer conditions and corrects past injustices. You have to remember that you cannot get up today and speak in an environment, in an open, democratic, global village environment today. You cannot deny the kind of discrimination that has gone for years together, that has been brought about on the basis of sexual orientation or gender discrimination or on a certain caste discrimination basis. So different approaches to affirmative action. So affirmative action by itself and affirmative action through CSR. So what are the affirmative action by itself? You can recruit employees or provide them opportunities in recruitment process for SC and ST communities, procurement from SC and ST vendors, offering solution to address the need and challenges of the SC/ST communities. Through CSR, implementing CSR activities as per Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. But when you actually plan and strategize your projects under Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, which is Section 135 of the Companies Act 2013, you actually can target a certain percentile of the beneficiaries and the communities that you target based on the need assessment that you carry out, based on the baseline assessments that you carry out, targeting specifically scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities in those areas. And therefore, in a passive way, you will address affirmative action through the implementation of your CSR initiatives. Now, let's look, why do we talk about these backward communities? There is a far more urban, educated strata of the society which says it's time that we do away with reservation. It's time that we do away with reservation and let us all have a common working platform, a level playing field for everyone. I have some data to put up a question to those people who actually talk on those lines. And these are some of the data which will actually bring you down to the understanding that why do we need a stronger affirmative action all the more at this time when we talk. As per the erstwhile Planning Commission, which is now the NITI Aayog, the ST population below poverty line came down from 47% in 2009 and 10 to 45.3% in 11-12. Look at the figure, 47.4 to 45.3. I'm forgetting 47.4. Look at the starting facts. 45.3% population. In urban areas in 2011 and 12, it is 24.1%. The census 2011 revealed that the situation of non-workers among total ST population was not dismal as compared to SCs and all other groups, which is 53.3%. We tend to live in a world that we create around ourselves, but we tend to forget the hardcore data realities. This data reality is telling you that affirmative action should be brought into the systems all the more strongly. The percentage of scheduled tribe non-workers declined from 50.9% to 42%. Let's look at 42%. If 42% is the level to be considered, imagine for every 100 people, 42 people are non-workers in this specific creed. According to SECC, 133.5 million households have a monthly income where the highest earning householder member earns less than 5,000, whereas households with any one of the 7 deprivations is only 86.9 million. As per the NSS, 34% of the SCs and 46% of the scheduled tribes household were in self-employment in 2004 and 5 in rural areas as compared to urban proportions with 29% and 26% respectively. Just look at the range in which you're talking. You are having approximately 87% ST households which have the highest earning member earning less than 5,000 rupees. And sitting in a metro like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, you would realize what 5,000 really is in today's inflationary mechanism of survival in the society. Look at the income source and the land holding among the rural households. If you look at the dependency on the manual casual labor, you look at it as 67% for the SCs, and look at the landless households, it's about 70% for these communities. There are 46,844 villages in the country having greater than 50% SC population. So you see what volume are you trying to address? You cannot make a mechanism, you cannot set up a strategy which alienates 46,844 village, which is basically greater than 50% of the SC population. 21.53% of the rural household belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in India. Let's look at some of the figures on the gender mechanism. So if you look at it, you will see that in 2011 and 12, 1.3% is the unemployment rate of the SC, 2.0% is the unemployment rate of the SCs. The OBCs are at 1.7, others are at 1.8. If you look the starking comparison with that of the rural female, you will see actually there's a decrease of the percentile as well. It is 1.1 in STs, it is 1.4 in the scheduled caste, 1.7 which is normally the same level of the OBC for males. If you look and compare it with the urban side, now this is very startling. Now look at the urban statistics. In 11-12, I'll just refer to the 11-12 census survey. It is 3.4% in the urban mechanism and 3.2% for scheduled castes. It is 4.8% for the females of the scheduled tribe and 4.5% for the females of the scheduled caste. Just look at the percentile, convert it into your population, and you'll know what basically it indicates. We have taken a small insert that the Maharashtra government on the issue of suicides among cotton farmers in state suggests that suicide incidences are higher among scheduled castes and scheduled tribes across caste groups and for marginal and small farmers across size class of the land. So, the moment the land is low and you are of the backward community, the data suggests that the suicides are more in those community environments. Now let's come to an alignment. Now this is a very interesting part because we have discussed about social enterprise, why we require social enterprise, what is social enterprise. Now we'll talk about what is the alignment, what alignment are we trying to suggest between social enterprise and an affirmative action. So some of the mechanisms which are already in practice. So an allocation of rupees 200 crore in the budget estimates of 2014-15 for setting up a venture capital fund for scheduled castes. Earmarking a plan outlay of tribal subplan at 24.71% under Indira Awas Yojana and 20.59% for NRLM, which is basically looking into your Ajivika, your livelihoods. Specific provisions made in the guidelines of programs such as Manrega, PMGSY and NSAP for the benefit of SC/STs. Mudra Bank will be financing 6 crore small vendors and businesses, 61% of whom are SCs, STs and OBCs and minorities. Indian Development Marketplace, a World Bank initiative to fund and support social enterprises, announced grants worth 2 million to 20 social entrepreneurs in Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. Uh, India Inc. So now this great uh, aura about India Inc. and addressing the issue of social enterprise development. Let's see how things are framing up. So Tribal Farmers Producer Company, Srikakulam, Andhra Pradesh, which ALC and NABARD. NTFP gathers self-help cooperatives at Mayurbhanj, Odisha, ALC and Sparda. Tata Social Enterprise Challenge, SEBI notified the World Social Venture Fund. So now it's an official fund for as far as the private sector is concerned now. In May 2012, SEBI notified the World Social Venture Fund. Avishkar is also an example. It's a venture capital firm which has been investing in social ventures for over a decade now. Now basically trying to catalyze innovation at the bottom line of the pyramid. And believe me, out of my personal experience, I can tell you social enterprise is a challenge. And when you work in a social enterprise environment, you tend to realize that you go back to the bed. Earning money, yes, you do, if you treat the business properly. But also there is a great deal of satisfaction of having larger social good while you go back to your bed thinking about your businesses and close your eyes for getting up next day morning and starting up anew. Yeah, so now something about CII and the social enterprise development that it takes place. CII has got ITC Center for Excellence for Sustainable Development, which mentors, advises, and provides a platform for social entrepreneurs and enterprises. Mentorship and advices on business models, strategies, and partnerships. Annual event on sustainable and inclusive solutions, especially on the Affirmative Action platform, a platform for social entrepreneurs and enterprises. Social enterprises that CII have worked are in energy case accesses, rural distribution, agricultural services. Association with Selco Incubation Center for creating conditions to deliver energy services to low-income families, and CII sponsored code of conduct for affirmative action. And I would like to bring into highlight that they're doing a commendable job on this, provided more and more number of companies should come ahead and not only limit themselves to signing of MOUs and commitments, but they should also go into implementing such initiatives at large, which is signed by 690 companies for collecting data on SC/ST employees in 2010, and they're doing a great job at it. Affirmative action and India. So now let's talk about the affirmative action a bit. As per the MSME report 2014-15, 7.83% of enterprises were owned by scheduled caste entrepreneurs, 5.76% by scheduled tribes entrepreneurs, 41.94% by entrepreneurs of other backward classes. So you see, there is no dearth of capacity. There is no dearth of capacity, entrepreneurial nature in the backward communities. The question is right on our face: are we providing them with a conducive environment to grow? Are we taking this understanding beyond these webinars into implementation into our own business processes, where the commitment is not by law, where the commitment is by the nature of our functioning, that we make, that we will allow affirmative action to flow throughout the value chain of our process. All India Confederation of SC/ST organization was created in 1997. All India SC/ST Railways Employee Association, which is always there. Some of the affirmative action movement, Tribal Cooperative Marketing Development Federation of India. The Narendra Modi government's Farm to Work program, over 2,000 farmer organizations in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana will be incubated to grow into a cooperative society, trust, and ultimately a company as a part of the plan being implemented by the National Board of NABARD, the country's largest development leader. Now let's look about some of the conclusions. So what is the way ahead? Now that we have aligned it with the social enterprise development and the affirmative action, some of the things that we can actually conclude. What are the requirements? So need to promote a social enterprise through social venture funds. Very clear need of the financial sector and this funding mechanism to be social enterprise friendly and affirmative action friendly. Establish platforms for highlighting social innovators. You need to establish platform where social innovators have a special sector. You have a lot of these hackathons, you have a lot of these development marketplaces for the private sector, the startup incubators for private sector. We need to have at parity and equal level of intrusion from the financial sector as far as social enterprises and affirmative action is concerned. Create a larger market space by addressing social issues. Government should adopt policies which it's on way, but we should also try and do away with a lot of red tapeism, because you got to realize that when affirmative action comes into play, you're talking about a population which has been deprived from access to education and other sources for a large period of time, and now to expect them to fight through the red tapeism to the top level, I think will require a huge amount of hard work from our own side to reduce the challenges for their growth. Encouragement of cooperative movement as a social enterprise model. Corporations can invest their CSR funds. I've already explained. Please invest your corporate social responsibility funds if businesses are listening to me. Please invest your CSR funds as per the Schedule 7 of the Section 135 of the Act. But while you do that, ensure that the larger beneficiary group is from the backward and the SC/ST communities. Thereby, you will be addressing the issue of affirmative action through development of social enterprises, allowing your social responsibility funds to address the issue of funding for them. Now, what is the way forward? If you look at the alignment between India Inc. social enterprises and affirmative action, so what is the way forward for it? Now, this is a tripartite model, a typical example of a social enterprise, affirmative action, and CSR. This is, I guess, sums up the whole webinar in a total if you just go through it in detail. You see the illustration. On the left hand side, you can see the illustration which tells you the availabilities, and on the right side, you can have a mechanism of management. So Corporation X total CSR expenditure for a year is rupees 200 crore. Let's see this alignment. The product is handicrafts and food processing that they want to invest on. Registration, it's a private limited company under the Act 2013. Organization structure, I would actually come. Operations, how does it function? So it basically sources from community members, processes the finished products, and markets it. Sharing of revenues, yearly dividends, remunerations of community members. Please remember, yearly dividends and remuneration of community members, salaries to the staff, operational expenditure, expansion costs. Now you look at the right hand side, which tells you it's a very, very simplistic structure. You need to have your board members which will look at the CSR management. It will have managers which will manage the project. Farmers and artisans can be from the backward community. On a tripartite level, there can be multiple groups. We have just mentioned here 3 because of space constraint. You can have multiple community groups focusing on farmers and artisans, because handicrafts and fruit processing will require involvement of farmers and artisans. But if you primarily focus on SC/STs and other backward communities in this, and people with disabilities, I think you address the issue of corporate social responsibility, social enterprise, and affirmative action in a very, very simplistic way. Now, benefits of the tripartite model. Now, we have just explained this model. Now, what are the benefits? It provides an opportunity to gain financial sustainability and independence for the SC/ST communities. CSR grant in this structure will allow corporations to spend money on social and environmental issues and services not otherwise funded. Assets of social enterprise belong to the community, please remember, and cannot be sold off for private financial gains. People who are local stakeholders in the area of benefit, playing a lead role in the entrepreneurship development. Local community leaders are the shareholders who ensure accountability of the enterprise to the community. And social enterprise will be able to generate profits on a surplus that can be reinvested and distributed for community benefit. So what you got to understand, in this slide, wherever we are talking about communities, if you just put a bracket and say community focused with scheduled caste and scheduled tribe and other backward communities, it will address the issue of affirmative action through the development of the social enterprise model. Now, I would sum it up in a way by saying that, you know, we are in a global dynamic village that we exist today. The government is trying through its digital campaign, through its financial inclusion campaign, to reach to every person, every last man standing in the line. But at the same time, we should not forget that, you know, this convergence of finance with technology should reach to every corner of this country, where not a single person should be left who feels deprived on being of a specific caste, on being of a specific gender, of being a specific special capacity human being. We got to realize that unless and until, you know, we are talking in a country where 40% of our country goes hungry every single day. I don't know how you and I can be very happy with the fact that in a 100-member family, 40 people are going to bed without food every single day. You know the requirement that we have, the humongous task that we have in front of us. If the private sector is now ready to get involved in this growth process, India as a country, as a global economy will sustain. If not, if the private sector still focuses only on its self-profited game, which primarily I agree is its primary aim to get into profit, but if we completely forget the social harmony around, it's only for time that the financial harmony of in private organizations will also take a beating. So it is time, and it is now the apt time for financial institutions to get involved with some of the social initiatives of this country and to bring in their expertise in the sector to address the issue of social responsible behavior by addressing the development of social enterprises which are more socially accountable, and by addressing the needs of the specific backward communities under the affirmative action banner. I would sum it up by thanking you all and thanking CII for giving this opportunity to throw light on some topics. And at the end of the PPT, I cannot end it before expressing my heartfelt gratitude towards the team which has been behind to design. And believe me, it is not just putting a PowerPoint in place for you to see, but it is the kind of hours of hard work that everyone had to put in. So I would like to extend my specific and heartfelt thanks to Rahul, who was behind the content of this matter, Rohit being the designer, and Ms. Jaya, who has led the team to develop this presentation to be presented in front of you. And thank you, Mr. Sapru, once again for giving me this opportunity to discuss with you all. I am open for questions. If you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer you now. Mr. Sapru.